experiences generally seem strange, unbelievable, or unnatural to human beings. Find out about the cutting-edge science used to investigate the unexplained, fakes, and frauds. For the number of people who have truly observed otherworldly phenomena, there are just as many stories that turn out to be false. You'll be surprised was Masayo Asano driving a car emblazoned with the number 42. During the race, Asano's car went out of control and he suffered a fatal crash. In Japanese, the number 42 translates as shini, which means to die. Racing officials afterward banned the use of the number 42, but in the following years, Grand Prix event marshals checking the cars as they passed noticed that a car bearing the number 42 was seen in 8 out of the 25 laps. Caught in time. In August 1901, 2 women visiting the Palace of Versailles I'm not really sure how to pronounce that word, walked toward the small private chateau of the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. Along the way, they sensed an oppressive atmosphere and passed strangely attired gardeners. A woman was sketching in the garden as they arrived. On a subsequent visit, the layout of the palace and gardens was different, and they were convinced that they must have slipped back in time on the previous occasion. They later identified the woman sketching as Marie Antoinette. Remarkably, the gardeners and the woman had stared at them as though they were actually there. Coffins that moved. In 1808, in Christchurch, Barbados, the family crypt of Mrs. Goddard was bought by a plantation-owning family, the Chases. They buried 2 daughters in the stone tomb, but when it was reopened in 1812 to bury Mr. Chase, who, like one of his daughters, had committed suicide, the heavy lead coffins inside were found upended. The same happened at 2 more burials. In 1819, the governor of Barbados ordered the tomb to be sealed because it was creating fear among the local population. Following noises heard from within the tomb, it was reopened and the coffins were again in disarray, except Mrs. Goddard's. There was no sign of forced entry. Food for thought. 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 Human intervention could account for many supposed hauntings. In the case of the coffins that apparently moved by themselves, they could simply have been thrown into disarray by the surviving relatives of the previous owner of the crypt, who might have resented the intrusion of strangers into the family grave. Tired minds can also create a dreamlike state so that we can easily become confused between the real world and that of daydreams, believing that we have seen things when, in fact, there is nothing there. This haunted isle. For some reason, the British Isles appear to be the focus of a great deal of supernatural activity. Their populations have recorded more sightings of UFOs, ghosts, and other strange phenomena than any other region of comparable size in the world. Every year, there are almost more sightings of ghosts reported in Great Britain than in the rest of the world put together, making Great Britain the unofficial ghost capital of the world. Whatever the reasons for this high level of apparent spectral activity, it does mean that there is a wealth of material from all periods of history to investigate. Multiple hauntings. Many sites in Great Britain are said to walk the battlements every year on the anniversary of her death. Lore and order. At Bramshill House in Hampshire, now used as a police training college, there have been so many ghostly encounters that even the worldly wise police officers have accepted that the house must be haunted. In addition to the more usual ghosts, there are apparently rooms in the house that dogs will not enter, and even a path in the grounds that is haunted. One of the more pathetic of the many apparitions that haunt the house is a young girl who accidentally suffocated inside a trunk during a game of hide-and-seek one Christmas. Food for thought. 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 Well known for their fertile imaginations, the British have produced some of the world's greatest works of literature and scientific invention. Perhaps their lively minds are all too willing to see mystery where none exists, embellish it, and pass it on as myth. The often murky weather conditions of the British Isles could account for some of the strange, shadowy shapes that are sometimes thought to be ghosts. Things that go bump in the night. Ghosts are often accompanied by strange sounds. In fact, some ghosts seem only to be audible spirits who never manifest themselves in any visible form. Sounds associated with the earthly life of ghosts are common. So, too, is music. Sometimes, especially with poltergeists, a haunting is accompanied by obscene or blasphemous language. This is often voiced through living people, as if the ghosts were using them as a vehicle to express their anger. Audible ghosts are often accompanied by a sense of foreboding, as if they were predicting some tragic event. In Irish folklore, wailing banshees are female spirits said to warn off an impending death. Such spirits are common in many other cultures, including India and South America. A plain mystery. American musician Glenn Miller is generally held to be the finest band leader of his day. On December 15th, 1944, he took an airplane from England to Paris, France, to arrange a series of concerts for the U.S. troops stationed there. The plane disappeared into thick fog and was never seen ghosts have been reported over the years, including that of a white lady. Ghostly music is sometimes heard, and visitors often ask about the strong herbal fragrance that seems to permeate the entire house. The scent seems to come and go at random at all times of the day. Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought, 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 food for thought. Associating ghosts with the devil and haunting music were probably plays used by early church authorities as they attempted to woo people away from pagan religions to follow the new true faith, as they saw it, of Christianity. Many European legends tell of ghosts haunting the ancient standing stone monuments that were centers of pagan religions. Some say the stones themselves are the petrified remains of dancers who were turned to stone by the devil as they danced on the Sabbath. Restless souls. The most common reason given for a ghost manifesting itself is that the spirit or soul of the dead person is troubled and unable to rest. This state of transience is believed to have many causes, but all are in some way connected to a sense of injustice, or perhaps guilt that in life the person did not do all that he or she could have to protect someone. Injustice might be felt by the victim of a violent murder who returns again and again to the scene of the crime, apparently unable to rest until the murderer has been revealed. Alternatively, a ghost might simply be someone who was not ready to die and felt aggrieved that their time on earth had been cut short. Headless hauntings. Headless ghosts are common, presumably because the people felt a strong sense of injustice about meeting such a violent end. In the past, the Tower of London was the scene of many executions and is reputed to be the single most haunted building in the world. Similarly, in Paris at the time of the French Revolution from 1789 to 1799, the site of the executions is reputedly haunted by several headless ghosts, including Louis, I don't know what number that is in Roman numerals, but Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Mythical gods. In Nordic mythology, one of the most feared apparitions was Odin, the god of war. Leading a pack of dogs on the wild hunt, Odin rode across the night sky in search of lost souls. The apparition usually foretold of an impending death. Phantom cargo. In Papua New Guinea, natives are often seen scanning the horizon for phantom cargo. They wait for dead relatives to come in great canoes, nowadays ships and airplanes too, full of goods that will enrich their lives. In the past, missionaries who brought items from the civilized world were sometimes allowed to settle in Papua because the natives mistook them for the ghosts of their dead ancestors. Astral projection. Most religions believe in a spirit world or astral plane to which the souls of the dead return. It is not a separate place in the heavens, but it is thought to exist all around us at a level of consciousness of which we are normally unaware. The astral body or spirit of a person is said to leave the body during sleep and at death in order to enter this other level of existence. Ghosts may be astral projections of dead people who have become trapped between this world and the next. Until released in some way, they are unable to pass fully into the spirit world. Isle of the Blessed. In Celtic Drake's drum. Sir Francis Drake, born 1540, died 1596, used a drum to muster the crew of the Golden Hind for battle. According to legend, on his deathbed, Drake promised to return and fight for England if ever the drum were beaten at the approach of an enemy. During World War II, stories circulated of warships being miraculously saved from disaster after the ghostly sounds of drumming were heard. However, Drake's drum has never been carried aboard any ship since its return to England in the 1500s. City of God. While camped outside Rome in AD 3112, Emperor Constantine saw a vision of a fiery cross in the midday sky. An inscription on it urged him to attack the city. He carried out the attack and was victorious. In gratitude to the Holy Spirit, which he claimed to have seen, he ordered that Christianity become the official religion of the Roman Empire. Custer's Last Stand. In June 1876, American Civil War hero General George Custer was killed fighting the Sioux Indians at the Battle of Little Bighorn. 1 month earlier, as Custer had ridden out of Fort Abraham Lincoln at the start of the expedition, people in the fort saw half the regiment apparently rise up into the sky and then vanish. It may have been a mirage caused by the heat of the sun, but around half the 7th Cavalry were subsequently massacred in the battle. Food for thought. 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 The intensity of a life or death battle inevitably causes the release of large amounts of adrenaline in the participants. Stories such as the Bowmen of Mons may have been the result of mass hysteria or born out of a collective memory of some long past scene. People often see what they want to see. 3 different observers of the same event, say a soldier, a priest, and a scientist, will each explain it in terms in which they relate. The soldier may see an army of ghost soldiers in the sky, the priest the divine light of God, while the scientist may see ball lightning or interpret the other's visions as products of overwrought minds. Unknown forces. Most ghosts appear to be benign and cause no physical harm. However, some spirits are far from passive and can inflict actual bodily injuries or, in extreme cases, death. The most common form of such malevolent behavior is poltergeist activity. There are also many reports of people falling victim to invisible assailants. One extreme case in 1761 in Ventimiglia, Italy, involved a woman who was attacked by an unseen force. Her body was literally torn apart in the presence of her 4 companions, who remained unharmed. Poltergeists. Poltergeist activity often includes objects being hurled through the air, but sometimes they also appear from out of nowhere. In 1998, all the items shown here fell into a house in the Northern Territory of Australia within a period of 2 or 3 hours. The knife flew past an investigator who was in the house at the time, narrowly missing his ear. Hair today, gone tomorrow. Between 1876 and 1879, the province of Nanjing, China, suffered a strange yet oddly reoccurring phenomenon in Chinese history. An invisible assailant ran amok, cutting off people's pigtails. lawyer's office swinging unaided. No physical cause could be attributed to the phenomenon. The telephone system also behaved strangely. All 4 of the office telephones would suddenly ring without reason, and strange power surges were recorded. Sigmund Adam, the lawyer, called in experts to help. The source of these mysterious happenings seemed to be his secretary, a 19-year-old woman. When she left, the activity stopped. House clearance. The furniture in this house in Dawdleston, England, was repeatedly piled into one corner of the room by an unknown force while the owners were out of the room. On one occasion in 1983, computer messages were also received, purportedly transmitted by a man living in the 1500s. Perhaps this is a case of parallel worlds, where people from other time spans or dimensions appear to be sharing the same space as ourselves. Bodily harm. In 1926, this 13-year-old Romanian girl, Eleanor Zugan, suffered horrific injuries at the hands of an invisible force. Witnesses described seeing her throat being squeezed as though she were being strangled. On other occasions, bite and scratch marks appeared spontaneously on her face and neck. Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought, 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 food for thought. There is plenty of evidence of malevolent poltergeist activity, but the source of this power remains a mystery. Most poltergeist activity is centered around young teenage girls at the time when their bodies are undergoing immense physical changes. The girls made themselves be the source of the poltergeist activity as a result of heightened mental and chemical activity affecting the environment around them. Phantom ships. Over the centuries, the world's oceans have been the scene of many shipping disasters, and the loss of life has often given rise to the tales of ghosts and phantom ships. One area especially associated with mystery is the Bermuda Triangle in the North Atlantic Ocean. Hundreds of ships and airplanes have simply disappeared there without a trace, and several ghost ships have been reported in the area. When sightings of phantom ships are reported by credible witnesses such as, I think that is King George V. I think V in Roman numerals is 5. I could totally be wrong though. Who, as a young naval officer, cited the Flying Dutchman. We are forced to take the stories seriously rather than dismiss them as delusions of sailors who have drunk too much rum. Airships. From all corners of the globe, there have been reports of mysterious airships, not the great gas-filled zeppelins of the early 1900s, but wooden galleons in full sail drifting across the sky. One such apparition was witnessed in Papua New Guinea in 1959 by the entire staff of a religious mission. All at sea. In the 1920s, the oil tanker SS Watertown was sailing from the Pacific coast of the U.S. to the Panama Canal. 2 of the crew members died in an accident and were buried at sea. The next day and for several days afterward, 2 phantom faces that resembled the dead crew were seen in the waves behind the ship. They always appeared in the same position for a few moments and then disappeared. The likeness materialized during the next 2 voyages of the ship, but were never seen again. severely damaged in a violent storm off the Cape of Good Hope, but the captain refused to turn back. His arrogance and blasphemous behavior was said to have caused God to condemn him to sail the seas